I am your host, Ashira Nelson, and this is PBS Western Reserve Forum 360, where we have a global outlook from a local view. Today, I'm interviewing Charde, the founder of Relevant Connections, a grant writer, trainer, consultant who specializes in integrating emotional wellness and inclusive practices into organizations to better support employees and the communities they serve. In just under 2 years, Charde has secured over $500,000 in grant funding, trained more than 10,000 professionals, and partnered with numerous organizations to address the racial equity, DEI, mental health, and corporate wellness initiatives. With her diverse background and clinical expertise, Charde is dedicated to create a safe space for meaningful conversations while helping organizations to build impactful programming and secure funding. On this episode, we'll explore the art of grant writing. Hello.
Hello, hello.
Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. Oh my God, that was one intro.
It was.
Yes,
it was.
So many amazing things that I cannot wait to get more into.
Yes, let's dive in for sure.
Okay, so let's start. Tell me just a little bit about yourself.
Yes, so I'm Charde Hollins.
Okay.
I'm happy to be local and a part of the communities that we serve. And so my background is in social work as a licensed clinician. And I have 2 beautiful children, Avery and Addie. Hey, y'all. And of course, my husband, Anthony.
Okay.
And they are just super supportive in this journey that I've chosen to support the communities that I live in, as well as those who are committed to do great work.
Very nice. So what inspired you to get into this career?
Oh, there's so much that could be said. So I'm a very passionate person. So I
Yes.
want to apologize ahead of time if I get excited.
No, let all the passion flow through.
Yes, because when I'm talking about mental health or
Yeah.
philanthropy, it just is, it gets all in my veins. So what really inspired me is, as a clinical social worker, I worked in various communities, from school-based to hospital to corrections. And so doing that direct practice work, of course, you see a lot of things, right?
Yeah.
And so what really drove me is when I worked in the correctional facilities for juveniles, and I was called there to really, do CBT, which is cognitive behavior therapy, case management, all of the things to really help them to identify things that were going on within their own minds and hearts, so that they can be better people when they got back into society. But the one thing I've realized is, no matter how much cognitive behavioral therapy or therapy period that I really got them, if I wasn't able to support them with their basic needs, if I was not able to make a relevant connection in the way in which this workbook in front of me that is evidence-based and all of those things told me what to do, I realized that it's not going to connect with these gentlemen. And so a whole bunch of light bulbs went out in my mind, and I started reaching out to different community individuals, from radio stations to rap artists to graphic designers, really asking them to come into the prison and kind of tie in the expertise that they have with the clinical workbook that I had. And so what happened is, of course, I wanted to compensate them. So I started giving them stipends and paying them. And of course, it was nothing what they deserved, but I wanted to say thank you. And I realized I'm supposed to go to work to make money, not to use my money.
Yeah.
And then
you were paying them from your.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Because that's just how passionate I was about this work.
Wow.
And I realized, me sitting there with all of the expertise that I have about therapy and cognitive behaviors, and being able to have attitudes, behaviors, and consequences, all the things that my wonderful school taught me, and we learn these things, but people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And at the end of the day, we need to meet people where they are.
Absolutely.
And I said, I have to find a way to really let this stuff sink in. And so I started reaching out to people who I knew could be relevant for them.
Okay.
And that could drive things in. And I was like, I got to stop using my money. There's a grant for that.
Oh. Okay.
Yes.
So what brought on the idea to even explore a grant? Because you were a social worker.
Yes.
So were those the same skills or?
So my father is a minister, and so he has always ran his church and the ministry that he did very tied to the community.
Okay.
And so he would go for different grants, you know, that were smaller. So I knew our church would get different funding off of stuff that we were just doing. But I was like, hey, if we're doing this type of work on the outside, and I'm doing this type of work on the inside, could there be a grant for that?
Okay.
And knowing that as a faith-based entity, prison ministries was a very key component to faith organizations. And so talking with my father and the prison ministry director and saying, hey, what does it look like for our church to support young people who are incarcerated?
Wow.
So we started writing grants underneath my church to come in and to be able to provide stipends for this ministry to take place.
Wow.
And so, it's a lot, but it's really tied in the professional aspect of what I do every day to also ministry, because this is a prime example of someone like yourself who's an interviewer or a radio host, and they're so excited as young men. They want to be basketball players or rappers, and you have to know how to speak.
Absolutely.
And I'm trying to teach them how to think about your decision making utilizing a workbook, but what about your decision making where you're sitting in front of an interviewer?
Right.
That's so much cooler than a workbook. So now being able to provide someone who I'm absolutely not giving them what they deserve, but it's simply a thank you because they care about their community too. To be able to say, here you go, and then they come in, they have a session with these young men, and then we tie in, okay, just like how you can't say certain things on air and it's right there, you can't always just fight. You can't always just curse people out. You have to think in the moment, just like how you had to think in the moment when you were on air because you're a rapper or because you're a basketball player or because you're a football player. So now let's really dive into what does it mean to take ownership of what you decide to do in the moment, even when you don't know what's coming.
Very nice. And why not have someone who inspired them know that, hit that, like that concept down, like really drill it in.
Yes.
Wow.
And so it's just like, and they become excited too now about group, because one of the things was like, you're not happy and I'm not happy. Neither of us want to be here. You know, how can we make this something that's enjoyable for both of us? But we're also still walking away with the tools that's needed for you to be successful in life, both while you're here and in reentry. And so that's really how I started grant writing. I started because I wanted to tie in my therapeutic aspect with relevant connections, which is how I came up with the name of the business. Because you can know everything in life, but if it's not relevant to the people in which you're trying to connect to, then it's not sustainable.
Not at all.
How can I take this educational knowledge that I know and make it into something that is sustainable and can connect with the population in which I desire to serve?
I love that. Okay, so let's get started with like some tips for someone who want to start grant writing, no matter if they're a nonprofit or for-profit business. So how does someone determine if their business or organization is even eligible for a grant?
So you want to make sure that you have more than an idea.
Okay.
Grant writing is about more than an idea. It's about a plan. You know, what is it that you're going to do? How is it that you're going to do it? And also, are you already doing something that can prove the need and the worth of it?
Okay.
So the best example that I give people is if somebody comes up to you and says, hey, can you give me money for a car? And you're like, sure, do you have your driver's license? And they say, no, I'm waiting to get a car. You're like, well, do you know how to drive? No, I'm waiting to get a car. So you look like, well, no, I need you to have a driver's license. I need you to know how to drive. Why would I give you money for something that you have not spent time in investing how to utilize, or you haven't invested your own time, money, and resources in it first? It's just an idea. It's just something that you want to do, that you are even passionate about, but you have not done it. And even though for me, yes, at the time it's like, why am I spending my own money for this? But it actually is part of the process. Because then when you're writing for a grant, you're able to say, this is what has happened, this is what has occurred, this is how we've been successful, and this is how I know it's a need that you should support.
Very nice. So would you recommend someone who beyond just the idea phase? Or should they have like 1 or 2 years in the game within their industry? What would be your recommendation?
I would definitely say whatever it is that you want to do, before you go for a grant, you should be doing it.
Okay, so just doing it.
Go for it, do it, invest in it, and make sure that you have data and numbers.
Okay. So where can beginners start looking to see about grants that kind of fit their need?
So I will definitely call out this site, which is called Grant Watch.
Grant Watch.
Grant Watch.
.com, .org.
Good question. I'm going to say .com.
Okay.
I'm going to say
Grant Watch.
.com.
Okay.
But Grant Watch, and then that is a very good portal because you're able to kind of narrow in on what it is that you're looking for, whether it's by state, city, whether it's by different categories, all types of stuff. That's a good one. There's a lot of grant research areas out there, but what I would say is, of course, some of them do cost and can be costly.
Oh wait, grants cost.
Grants cost. So researching for grants cost, as far as having a platform where it's all at your disposal. And then, of course, writing grants also cost, which a lot of people
didn't know this. Okay.
Yes, let's talk about it. That's why we're here.
Yes. No, yeah.
So when it comes to, as far as who is, so a grant, if you want a grant writer, I should say. So if we're talking about
so if you need assistance with applying for the grant.
Correct. Okay. Yeah, so if you need assistance with applying for a grant and you want to get a professional grant writer, that is going to cost.
Okay.
So one of the biggest misconceptions about grant writing is that you're able to pay a grant writer from the grant.
Oh. Okay.
So I know there's a couple people probably listening or who have tried before to say, hey, or even have hired someone and said, hey, can I pay you once I get the grant? But that is not ethical.
Okay.
So
what would be a more ethical way?
A more ethical way is that you are paying the grant writer for the service that they're providing, but it's not from inside the grant. So we're going to talk, okay? So y'all follow me, okay? Follow me. So there are different elements of a grant, right?
Yes.
So there's different elements of a grant, and I say that because that's going to show people why it is you can't pay a grant writer out of the grant. So there's the need statement, right, which clearly states like why it is that you need this. You want to make sure you have data in there.
Oh, okay.
Right? So why is it that you want to do this great work? Why are you needed? Put your data in there that shows that these are the statistics that align with why you do what you do, right? So that's that. And then you want to talk about what it is that you do. Why is it that, what are you doing that meets this need? And then you also want to make sure that you're talking about the evaluation process. So evaluation is saying, okay, this is the need, this is what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to prove to you that what we're doing actually works and meets the need.
Okay, 1 second.
I know. I get excited. Go ahead.
So I'm your host, Ashira Nelson, and today I am interviewing Charde Hollins on the art of grant writing. So let's get back into that because it was that's a lot to unpack.
It is.
I had no clue. Okay, so jump back into that last point, the evaluation stage.
The evaluation stage says that this is how I'm going to know that I've achieved the need, or that I've supported the need.
Okay.
So it's the statement of need of like, why is it that you need this? You want to make sure there's data in there. And then there's, what am I going to do in my program or my service that will, combat this need? And then there's the evaluation process saying, well, how will I track? How are you going to track and be able to report out and say, hey, this is what we did, and the data that's going to then support the need and your program.
Wow.
And then the last part is the budget. The budget means this is how we're going to spend the money. In order to meet the need and the program. Who's not a part of the budget are things that happen before you get the money.
Oh.
Who do you get before you get the money?
Grant.
The grant writer, which means the grant writer cannot be in the grant or paid from the grant because
not in the budget at all.
Not in the budget.
Not in the paperwork, not in the application. That needs to occur before you even start applying. So now I see that the ethical side to that.
Yes, because you've told the funder that this is what we're spending the money on. But then you're going to take part of that and pay somebody for something that was done before you even got the money. So that's not right.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so how can someone develop the skills that's needed to successfully apply for a grant or be awarded for a grant if they are a nonprofit or for-profit business? So
definitely, you know, there's several of online or in virtual or whatever classes that you could take. Grant writing isn't necessarily a degree. It is skill-based.
I very much think this is a skill.
Yeah, it's definitely skill-based. You really want to enjoy research as well as storytelling.
Oh,
and being able to combine the two together.
Okay, I can see that, yeah.
And I would tell people to read grants. Don't just try and write one. Literally look up a grant that's been written before so that way you can start seeing the language and the way that a grant flows.
Is that type of information online?
It is.
Okay.
It is. And some good examples can be somebody's research paper, but there's also like literally Google is everything.
Yeah.
And you can literally Google grant proposals. You can also, if there's a grant that you're going for, let's say your city, your county, your state, even the federal government put out a grant, you can request for either winning proposals or a proposal example.
Wait, you can request a winning proposal?
Yes. So there are certain, especially on the government levels, that are public knowledge, right? So it's public knowledge to know, you know, who won or whatever the case may be because they're government dollars.
Yes.
And so many of them, if you request it, it's like requesting records for anything else. Just like you request minutes from a board meeting or you request whatever, it's out there. You just have to request it. And then they will send it to you and you have gold in your hand. So now you can read it. You don't want to copy it word for word because you want to make sure it's, you know, your thoughts and ideas and your passion. But then now you get to literally see a great example of how a proposal was written and you can follow that.
Okay. I did not know that was a thing.
It is.
That is gold because I did not know. So how important is it to follow the grant guidelines exactly as stated?
Very important.
Okay.
So part of my background as once I stopped doing direct service in that clinical space and I was writing grants, I went and was able to work as a program manager and I read grants. I wrote what's called the request for proposals, which are RFPs.
Okay.
I scored grants, all of those things.
Okay.
And so I really got to, in the first part of life, you know, be the one who wanted the money. Like, oh yes, like I want to support, I want to help. You know, I had all the passion in the world for that aspect and then went to now being behind the scenes and getting the proposals that were written to me. And that's where it really helped to hone in the expertise of grant writing and understanding because I not only just had the passion, but now understood the business and the process.
Yeah.
And as a funder, you have to think, they're getting hundreds, if not thousands of applications, depending on where you are. And so it's important that you are writing to the questions because there's a limited amount of time. We are all human, no matter how we want to say that, you know, one thing isn't, we're human, you know? And so getting to the point and knowing like, this is what the question is, answer the question.
Okay. No fluff.
No fluff. Answer the question.
Okay. So it's not about length. It's about being direct.
It's about being very direct.
Precisely to the point.
Yes. So much so that many funders are now having restrictions on character limits. It's not even word limits anymore. It's character
limits. Like, so not 500 words.
Yeah, they're like, we only want 1,000 characters. That's a period, that's a space, that's a letter, which tells you even more so how much the funder really wants people to just answer the question and get to the point. So Get to the point.
Wow. So how can a beginner make their proposal stand out in such a crowded market?
So definitely getting to the point.
Okay.
Whatever that question is that is right there on the paper. And when we say get to the point, it's not even that you have to get to the point and it's just a sentence, right? You always want to make sure, I want to hone in on data.
Data. So I'm seeing a trend here.
Yes.
Data is very important.
Data is
You've got to be able to support that need.
Yes.
Okay.
You want to be able to support the need, and you also want to be able to support why you can feel the need based on data.
Okay. Okay.
And so one of the things that, we've been blessed to be so successful is because I've been on both sides. I've been able to be passionate about the work, and then also now realizing the process of the work and what needs to be reported. And what I'll say is you want to make sure that you're, of course, talking about your passion, but inserting data in the reason why you've been successful. So you want to talk about how many people you've served, what impact you've had on their lives, what kind of outcomes came because your program exists.
Okay. And I can see why it's so important to have done it, be in it, have skin in the game before applying for this grant, because you need to be able to state exactly what you have done.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow. Are there any creative ways to showcase the impact of a project or business in a proposal?
Yes. So we would definitely want to talk about, especially if you're smaller. A lot of times the people who really need the most support with grants are those who are smaller organizations. Absolutely. And so the biggest thing I tell people is you want to find things that maybe a larger organization doesn't have and or may not be tracking, right?
Okay.
So the best thing, the example that I give is attendance and participation.
Okay.
So you may only be able to support 25 people, and you think like, oh, it's just been 20 people. It's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
Listen, it's an amazing, okay? Because who you're supporting, depending on your population, one, the program is voluntary.
Okay.
Two, it's probably individuals with a high need. Three, they're actually coming.
Right.
So if you can report that you have a 95% attendance rate.
Okay.
That is, even though it's just 25 people, that's gold compared to somebody who has 10,000 people, but their attendance rate is, 33%.
Okay.
That means there are 95% of your population is coming to 90% of the sessions, or that's the data you want to track and keep, because it tells the funder like, wow, whatever you're doing must be really amazing that this population that usually doesn't engage is coming to you voluntarily on a consistent basis. This must be good stuff.
Okay.
Let me support you so that way you can get even more people to come. So you want to pick out what makes you unique, and you want to track that.
Okay.
Data.
I'm seeing that data.
With passion. Data with passion is what makes the best proposals.
Oh, I love that. Okay. So how can someone new at grant writing gain experience and improve their skills?
Yeah, so definitely, reading those proposals, seeing the different types of, if you want to take a class or things of that nature.
Oh, so there are classes
out there.
There
are classes out there.
So online.
Yeah, online,
read other
in person.
Classes.
Many of your local schools will have maybe a grant writing or grant administration or proposal or things of that. You could take one or two courses that have 2 or 3 credits or get a certification. There's a lot of things that you could do. The biggest thing that I tell people is really making sure that you're passionate and understanding of whatever you decide to write about.
Okay.
And so doing your research that you recognize, what the need is and how is it that we can craft this proposal to meet it.
Okay.
Stick to what it is that you're great at.
Okay. So if a small business owner is great at serving the community on a certain topic, let's just say, just because I know this area, financial literacy. So stick to the need of educating on financial literacy, supporting it with data. Any other advice for that person?
Yes. So first, if I can, I would love to share the difference between a for-profit and a nonprofit grant.
Yes, let's get into that. We only got like a minute left.
Oh,
but
for-profit and nonprofit. So a for-profit grant, if I give you $20, how can you make 40?
Oh.
A nonprofit, if I give you $20, how many people can you help?
Oh, I love that. Concise example.
Yes. So
okay.
we need to, first we got to figure out what kind of grants we're going for and what kind of money we need. And then from there, yes, tune in and figure out what it is that you actually want to give. Just because they're giving money for blue shirts, but you have red shirts, don't go and try to make blue shirts. That's just not the grant for you.
Oh.
So stick to what it is that you know, because at the end of the day, just like dating, when you're talking to someone, you're just trying to impress them, they know. And so will a funder.
So how can someone reach out to you for assistance with grant writing?
Oh, well, we do have a business, Relevant Connections.
Okay.
So you can go to relevantconnections.org. We're also on Instagram, Facebook, so you can reach out there as well. And we are very committed to supporting organizations that are part of the communities that they serve.
Okay, well, thank you. This is Forum 360, where we have a global outlook from a local view. Charde was our guest and told us all about the art of grant writing.
Forum 360 is brought to you by John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, the Akron Community Foundation, Hudson Community Television, the Rubber City Radio Group, Shaw Jewish Community Center of Akron, Blue Green, Electric Impulse Communications, and Forum 360 supporters.